Hi, so in this example I'm just going to show you how we got the large language model to extract the data from the SEC reports for the different companies' 10K reports. So this is a Colab notebook. Some of you have seen Colab notebooks in your MA 322 class or in your CS 211 class. I use them for both of those courses. If you took 321 from me, then you didn't do any Colab work, but the idea of a Colab notebook is pretty similar to a Google spreadsheet or a Google Doc. It's a Google document that you can share, so there's the big share button just like normal over here. And if you just put in this URL up here, which I'll paste into the description below the video, you can bring this notebook up yourself. One of the most famous things about these notebooks is there's these little kitties and corgis animations up here, and Google put those in as a April Fool's joke one year, and they were so popular they've been there ever since. And now the corgis and kitties are a standard part. If you can turn them off, of course, but they're a standard part of all the a lot of the data science notebook environments. Anyway, so this notebook is going to show you how we went about uploading the SEC data versions to that large language model and how we got it to extract the standardized versions of these terms. So remember, the idea behind this situation is that we're looking for these values right here for companies, American companies' 10K reports. And so what we're going to do is first use some Python code to pull the SEC versions of these 10K filings. And once we get those, you'll see that we can actually take those and put them into a text-based format and then upload them as a prompt to the large language model, and you'll actually be able to see what the prompt looks like in this notebook. So let's go down here, and you can follow along and run this code if you want to, or you can just watch me run it, your choice. But first let me clear all the outputs, because I think I just ran this a minute ago to make sure it works. But so once your notebook is up and running, come down here and run this first cell. And the first cell here is going to install some Python packages that we need to do our analysis here. Edgar Tools is the one that reads these various reports from the SEC databases. The other two packages here, one of them is for the large language models, and one is for presenting the various data that we have in a data frame, and that's called pandas. At any rate, we don't need to worry too much about what's going on here. It should be installing some stuff, and now the packages are all installed. So come down here, run this next bit of code. That's just going to set the display to be 10 rows instead of 100 rows or whatever. And it sets some other stuff as well too. The next one down here sets the identity for the Edgar Tools package. So the Edgar Tools package is the one that downloads the information from the SEC website. Edgar is the name that API goes by. So Edgar Tools is some code that helps you download stuff from that website. And in order to access the SEC's Edgar website, you need to identify your email. Otherwise, it won't let you download anything. And all you're doing is just identifying the user that's using the code. They don't store this email. They just require you to submit an email when you're accessing the site. So you can really put in any email, I think. All right, so let's run this bit of code as well, and that sets the identity so that the code below it down here is going to work. Now what we're going to do is we're going to pull the 10K, most recent 10K for Lululemon. So this little bit of code right here sets the CIK to be Lululemon CIK. Remember, the CIK is a identifier that every company has when it reports to the SEC. This identifier is unique to Lululemon. So if we set CIK to be this number right here, and notice it's being stored as a string, but if we set this CIK to be this number right here, then we can pass it in to the software and it'll get the information for the appropriate company, which is Lululemon. Then this little bit of code right here gets the filings for the 10K filings for this company, and then we're just going to grab the latest one and work with the latest one. So run this little bit of code. Now down here what we're going to do is we're going to take this filing object, which was the latest 10K, and we're going to get the income statement out of it. That's what this little bit of code does right here. And then we're going to convert it to a pandas data frame so that we can take a look at it here in the notebook. So if I run this little bit of code, it's going to print out. Alright, so this is very nice. What we're getting here is two columns over here, which the first column is called concept and the second column is called label. Concept is the taxonomy that is being used here by Lululemon. So you can see that the label over here is shorter. This is just called revenue, but this is what it's called in this particular taxonomy, which is kind of a weird name. Revenue from contract with customer excluding, I don't know what else is there, but so this is the income statement, and actually you can change the display over here to kind of something that's a little more nicer. So yeah, so now you can see that this is a standard taxonomy for these terms, and in this case Lululemon is using this particular standard taxonomy, but the familiar labels for them are over here in the second column. And then here's the data starting over here for 2025 ending in February for 2025. So this would be 2024 data that we're looking at here. Okay, so this is a nice version of the income statement. And if we go down here, what we're going to do is we're just going to keep rows 1 through 3. So I don't care so much about the concept, although I might pass the concept to the LLM. I'm just going to pass the label and this first column of data right here. So the way I'm going to do that is to use some of the index notation on the column and the row and the column numbers, which are the two numbers here in the square brackets. So you don't have to worry too much about what's going on here. But basically what this says is we're going to take columns 1 through 3. And so let's see what that looks like. Okay, so that's exactly what we want. There's the label, and if I look at it this way, here's the label over here, and then here is the column with the data in it. So that's my income statement. That looks like it's in a nice form. And then down here, if I do a similar thing for the balance sheet, I can get the data for the balance sheet. And the balance sheet now looks like here's the labels over here, and here's the actual data over here. Okay, so I've got a text-based version of both the income statement and the balance sheet. So now let's actually take a look at what the SEC version of the data looks like. So here's what it looks like here. This is on the from the SEC's website. Here's the income statement, and here's those labels that we were just looking at, and then here's the column of data right here. And so for the balance sheet it's similar. Here's the labels right here, and here's the column that we need, that first one right there. Alright, so that's what it looks like for the SEC. Now we're actually going to take the current table that we have and convert it to Markdown so that it's a little more apparent to the LLM what we're passing it. The LLMs really understand Markdown very well, so this makes sense to change it from a text-based version to Markdown. And so you can see what this is going to look like after we print it. It's got a nice formatting for the two columns with the these pipe symbols in between it. And so this is the version of the income statement we're going to pass. And now down here, let's get the version of the balance sheet. So this is the balance sheet. So what we're going to be passing to the LLM is this bit right here, and also this bit right here. We're going to be asking it to find the values that we want by looking at the labels here and then grabbing the corresponding values over here. Okay, so far so good. Now let's set up our prompt that we're going to pass to the LLM. So the prompt is going to be this string right here. Below is a list of financial concepts, and the financial concepts are inside of these tags right here, concepts to concepts. So we tell it that we're going to pass the financial concepts inside of here. These are the names of the things we want the LLM to look for. And then down here, we're going to put the income statement right in here. We're going to insert that markdown version of the income statement here, and then the markdown version of the balance sheet is going to be inserted inside of here. And then we're going to tell the LLM that we want it to find those values in those two parts, in those two tables, and to then list them out down here in a format called JSON and return that to us. So that's what the prompt's going to look like. And let's go ahead and print out the prompt, because now we're going to see what it looks like. All right, so what's happening here is, as we get this prompt right here, it substitutes in the markdown table for the income and the markdown table for the balance sheet. And here's what it looks like altogether. So that's what's being printed out down here. Exactly, this is exactly what the LLM is going to get. So I'm going to actually display it full output, and then I know you can't see that, but if I do a selection, you'll be able to see it. So this is what the prompt looks like. Below is a list of financial concepts given inside the concept tags. So this is what we want the LLM to find. And we're telling it to be found in the income statement and the balance sheet of a company's 10K report. Find the concepts and their values in the income statement or the balance sheet that follow. The income statement is enclosed in income statement tags. So here's the income statement right there. And then the balance sheet is enclosed in balance sheet tags. So here's the balance sheet down here, right? And then we say to the LLM, please return the values found as strings in JSON format as follows. Make sure to provide a number for every concept. Respond only with the following format, no other commentary or discussion. So we want it to look through those two tables and find the net revenue, cost of goods. Now notice up here the revenue is just called revenue, and it's not called net revenue. So the LLM has to know that in this list up here, net revenue is really just revenue. And likewise for the other terms as well too. SG&A up here is called selling, general, and administrative expenses. So hopefully it's going to find that value for the SGA. Okay, so back over here, meanwhile, we're about ready to pass the prompt to our language model. I've already entered in an open router key down here, so let's run that and get that set in. Open router key is the thing that allows you to call the large language models. So we set our open router key, and then we're going to set up our call and actually do the call here. Here we're using open router, but the actual LLM that we're using through open router is DeepSeek, and almost all the language models can perform this task. It's not a particularly difficult one, so just any decent LLM will do the trick here. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. This sets up the messages to the large language model. We're going to tell it you're a financial document expert assistant. Then we're going to pass in that big prompt that we set up earlier, and we're just going to ask it to respond. So we go ahead and run it, and I think this is going to print out the response at the bottom. We'll see. Yep, there it is. Okay, so this is what it's found. It's found the net revenue, cost of goods, found everything. And let's actually just check. I'm going to print out the income statement again here. So for net revenue, it's reporting this, and it must have gotten that from that value right there, called revenue. And then for the other ones, SG&A, it's identified this term right here for the SG&A, and that's, of course, this guy that's right here. So most of the language models do a really great job of extracting this data. It's not particularly difficult for them, but it's essential that they understand what's equivalent to net revenue on this particular list is going to be the thing that says revenue, right? And of course, here's another difference in term, we call it net profit, and on here it's called net income, right? So there it is. Let's see if we can find that value down here. Yeah, on the net profit, when it prints it out, yeah, that's the value right there. There it is. Okay, so that's it. You could also look at the balance, the other table as well too, if you wanted to compare. And these values down here came from the balance sheet, and these up here came from the income statement. So, all right, so in a nutshell, that's how we did it. And we do this for every year and every company that we want to collect data for. And you can also do this process on the fly. If you have a set of companies that you want to download data for, as long as you can find a way to execute this code that's similar to in this notebook, you can do this kind of analysis as well. So